I infiltrated a biological building. My team are expendable. Only I know the real plan. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Helicopter's turbines faded into the night, leaving only the wind clawing at my hood and the stink of burnt kerosene clinging to my jacket. My breath steamed in the cold, each exhale a small ghost that died against the concrete wall. My shoulders already ached from the gear, scanner, sidearm, the encrypted drive taped under my vest like a second heart. I tasted copper, bitten the inside of my cheek raw on the ride in. Reese's silhouette cut ahead, rifle low, boots crunching on frost-rimed gravel. The others fanned out, shadows among shadows. No one spoke. The silence had teeth. I could feel their eyes on me even when I couldn't see them. Thorne's knuckles cracked, like he was prone to do when he's angry. Silas's breath was too even, kind of calm that comes right before a knife. Mara's medkit rattled softly with every step, glass vials kissing the metal. They were pros, yeah, but pros hate being the last to know. I was the last to know too, technically. The second envelope had come to me alone, slipped under my bunk 3 nights ago. Inside, a single data chip and a note in handwriting I didn't recognize. Trevor is the root. Lisa is the gardener. Bring me both, or don't come back. No signature. Just the promise of a 7-figure transfer and a new name. Told the team the job was a smash and grab. 1 live brain. Triple play. Exfil by 0500. Left out the part where the brain might be older than the building. I left out the part where the building might be the brain. Stairwell door screeched on rusty hinges. Inside, the air was warmer, thick with mildew and something bitter, like a corpse left too long in the sun. It ate at my nostrils. My thighs burned by the third landing. Pack straps cut into my collarbones. Sweat pooled on the base of my spine, cold the instant it touched air. Smells like a morgue. Fucked a greenhouse. Thorne muttered. His voice echoed too loud. Keep it tight, Reese hissed. Tasted iron again. My tongue kept finding the raw spot. Scanner in my left hand vibrated softly, picking up neural chatter threaded through the walls. Not Wi-Fi, not Bluetooth. Something wetter. I angled the screen away so they couldn't see the waveform labeled Trevor_alpha. Halfway down, the emergency lights flickered. For a second, the stairwell went black. I smelled ozone and wet earth. When the red glow returned, Silas was staring at me. You're sweating like a rookie, Jax! Gear's heavy, I lied. At the bottom, a wall. Welded steel fused with pale, fleshy cables that twitched when Thorne's muzzle brushed them. They left a smear of clear slime on the barrel. Elevator only, Silas said, voice flat. Reese turned. Even through the visor, I felt the heat of his glare. You knew. Brief said primary access was compromised. Didn't say how. My voice sounded small. Thorne spat. The glob hit the cable and sizzled. You're a shitty liar, gearhead. I didn't answer. The bonus pinged in my mind like a phantom notification. The elevator doors parted with a sound like tearing cartilage. Inside, the walls were warm to the touch, pulsing faintly under my gloved palm. Cables overhead glistened, slick with something that smelled faintly of festered flesh and a yeast infection. One at a time, Reese ordered. They went. I waited until the car returned. Empty and breathing. My turn. Doors sealed. The descent was slow, car swaying like a cradle. Air grew humid. My suit's collar chafed my neck. Whisper leaked from the speaker grill. almost seductive. What? Was it in my mind? Jax, you came. I killed the audio feed. Was it Trevor? Or was it Lisa? My pulse thudded in my ears. The scanner showed Trevor's signature spiking. At least I think it was Trevor's. Heartbeat in the walls. The car jolted, doors opened into dim blue light and the smell of antiseptic and rotting meat. I stumbled against the wall as Reese's heavy hand nearly tore my feet from under me. What the fuck have you gotten us into, you little shit wiener? I gulped and looked past the disturbed glares of the rest of the team, their weapons pointed at me. Beyond the elevator door, I glimpsed the corridor. It stretched like an intestine, walls slick with bioluminescent mucus that glowed soft teal. More than I expected, I retorted, breathing heavily from the adrenaline. You want to get paid or not? It's simple. Just basic extraction. Enough money to retire. Make sure you can drown yourself in enough booze and drugs you'll never remember you were ever here. Reese threw me against the wall. Money did say it all. Weird as it was, money talks. The rest of them looked to Reese. He nodded. He began to trek down the hallway. I followed and directed with the scanner leading my way. The floor was warm, squelching under boots. My calves cramped from the stairs. I rolled my ankles and felt the pop of the joints. Thorn rounded on me the second we were clear of the elevator. Start talking now. Reese didn't stop him. I exhaled, breath fogging. Fine. Subject's name is Kevin, 22. Uploaded 6 weeks ago. He's a relay node, Trevor's backup. Lisa built the network module. Pull Kevin, we blind them for 72 hours. The rebellion hits 3 data centers. That's the play. Silas's eyes narrowed. And the bonus? Proof Trevor exists. A file. Coordinates to Lisa's off-grid lab. Brass want her alive. Mara's voice was quiet. You let us walk in blind for a side hustle. I let you walk in rich, I snapped. My throat tasted of bile. Elevator's right there if you want out. Reese stepped between us. We're paid, we finish. But you breathe wrong, Jax. I put one in your knee. Clear? I nodded. The air tasted like 3-year-old jerky. We moved. Pulse in the walls guided us. Thump, 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 thump. Like a carotid artery under skin. My scanner painted a map in real time. Veins of data converging on a single node. Trevor was hurting us. I just hoped it was towards the target. The chamber opened like a rib cage. Hundreds of bodies floated in tanks, skulls flayed open, wires blooming from gray matter like fiber optic ivy. The air was thick with formaldehyde and the copper tang of old, dried blood. My stomach lurched. I tasted bile again. Kevin's pod glowed soft amber. The kid looked barely old enough to shave. Cheeks still round with baby fat. Cover me, I said, jacking in. The interface bloomed in my retinal HUD. Trevor's file was already open, cursor blinking. 4 jacks. Read quick. I skimmed. Coordinates. Lisa's looping signature. A plea. She lied. I'm not the monster. Disconnect Kevin. Clean. He's bait. Take the data. Burn the rest. Reese loomed. What's it say? Later. I initiated extraction. Wires retracted with wet, sucking sounds. Kevin's vitals spiked, alive. Barely. Alarms! Red strobes painted the taint. Alarms! Red strobes painted the tanks crimson. The horde awoke. They poured in, pale, eyeless, moving like one organism, the air filled with the stench of rot and decay. Gunfire stitched the dark, muzzle flashes strobing. Thorne's makeshift wannabe minigun roared, brass raining across the floor, the shells sticking to the massive flesh that was the floor. Silas flanked left. Mara dragged Kevin behind and overturned Gurney. I stayed on the console. Upload bar crawling. 34%. 41%. Jax! We're dry! Thorn bellowed over the din. 67%. Claw raked my shoulder. Pain flared white hot. I spun, pistol barking. Thing dropped, but 3 more filled the gap. Their breath sour and wet. 89%. Reese grabbed my collar, breath hot against my ear. Time to go! Almost! The bar froze at 97%. A second wave crashed through the far door. Dozens, hundreds. Reese's eyes flicked to the timer on his wrist. Exfil window collapsing. Data's corrupted without the last packet! I shouted. 10 more seconds! Reese's eyes shoved toward the exit. You have 5. Then I blow the choke point. He slapped the detonator into Thorn's hand. Get them out. Mara was already dragging Kevin. Silas lay down, covering fire. I lunged back at the console. 98%! 99%! The horde surged. Reese roared, unloading his rifle point blank into the mass, buying me the final heartbeat. 100%. Drive ejected. I turned and saw Reese swallowed by the tide. Grenades cooking off in his fists. The corridor flashed white, then collapsed in fire and dust. Surface air hit like salvation. Cold, sharp, tasting of pine, distant snow. My lungs seized. I coughed wetly. Kevin thrashed in Mara's arms. Eyes rolling white, blood crusting the bandage she'd slapped on his skull. Trevor sees! He sees! Silas clocked him with a rifle butt. The sound was dull, final. The van screeched up. Tires spitting gravel. We piled in. Thorn drove. Knuckles bleeding on the wheel. No one spoke until the facility was a smear of smoke in the rear view. Mara's voice cracked first. He stayed because of you, Jax. Because you needed your precious file! Silas stared out the window, jaw clenched. Second in command. 10 years I ran with him. Gone for a data stick. I clutched the drive, the plastic warm from my grip. At least it was only one person. We have Kevin. We have Trevor's data. The rebellion gets its window. Silence that followed was colder than the night. Thorn slammed the brakes. The van skidded before I could react. His fist, meaty callus, smelled of corduroy, crashed into my temple. Stars exploded. The world tilted. I hit the floorboards, tasting blood and diesel. Through the haze, I heard Thorn's growl and low final. They want the data? Let the brass explain why it cost Reese, or they get nothing. Blackness swallowed me. Thank you so much for sticking with us for the first story. Now we're moving on to the second story. I hope you enjoyed that one. Well, let's get into it. Losing my sister broke my mind. Meditation saved my soul. But fate never strikes once. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. I heard the door crack open in the dead of night. A slow, protesting groan like old bones shifting under weight. It wasn't my bedroom door. That much I knew from the way the sound echoed down the hallway, muffled by the threadbare carpet. My heart thudded in my chest, a frantic rhythm against the silence. What door could it have been? I remember the chill of the hardwood floor under my bare feet as I hopped out of bed, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth seeping through the cracks in the windows. I padded across the house, the dim glow of the street lamp across, casting long shadows on the walls. Cool breeze flooded across my face, carrying the faint scent of wet grass. That's when the realization hit me like a punch. The front door stood ajar, swinging gently as if inviting the night inside. That's pretty much the only memory I have of that day. It was about 15 years ago, back when I was just a kid, barely into my teens. No one knows what really happened to my sister, Rose. There were no fingerprints, no signs of forced entry, as if she just up and walked out the door, never to return. Police combed the house, their boots scuffing the floors, flashlights piercing every corner, but nothing. Rose had been suffering from Morgellons for months, those inexplicable fibers pushing through her skin like tiny invaders. She'd scratched at her arms until they bled, whispering about wires burrowing into her bones. Her eyes wild with a pain no doctor could explain. They called it a delusion, a stress-induced hallucination, but to her, it was real agony. Maybe it drove her mad enough to run. Maybe something darker took her. Either way, the not knowing gnawed at me like those fibers she described. I don't think I ever really got over it. Closure never came. Just an empty room upstairs with her clothes still hanging in the closet, gathering dust. Twisted my life into something dark and jagged. I started getting into trouble. Fights at school, petty theft that escalated into breaking into cars. The adrenaline was a temporary balm, a way to fight against some invisible foe I named Fate. One night, I remember the metallic taste of blood in my mouth after a brawl in a dimly lit alley. The rain slicking the pavement as fists flew. "You're just like her," my mom would say, her voice cracking over the phone from whatever halfway house she was in. "Running from ghosts." But fate wasn't done with me. Found me in the most unlikeliest of places, a church of all things. Well, almost a church. It was an old community hall on the edge of town. Its peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights, a far cry from stained glass and sermons. We were just a small group of like-minded individuals, down on our luck, ready to do anything to claw our way out of the pit. I stumbled upon them during one of my aimless walks, the kind where the cold bites at your cheeks and the world feels too heavy. A flyer tacked to a telephone pole caught my eye. "Movement of the mind. Unlock your inner power." Curiosity got the better of me. That and promise of free coffee. The first meeting, I sat in a circle of folding chairs, the air heavy with the aroma of cheap instant brew and incense. Patchouli, I think? Cling and sweet. There were about a dozen of us. Grizzled veteran with tattoos snaking up his arms, a young mother with tired eyes, an accountant type who fidgeted with his tie. Our leader, Marcus, was a soft-spoken man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and a beard that made him look like a professor gone rogue. "The mind is a battlefield," he said that night, his voice steady and warm like a hearth fire. "But you can fortify it. Meditation, inner sight, self-reflection, these are your weapons. Find the root of your pain, embrace it, and turn it to your advantage." I scoffed at first, but as the weeks went on, something shifted. I learned to sit in silence, focusing on my breath, the rise and fall of my chest amid the dim, distant hum of traffic outside. The darkness from Rose's loss was still there, swelled like a bruise inside me, if I didn't let it control me anymore. Instead, I dissected it. The guilt for not hearing her cries sooner. The anger at a world that let her vanish. Everyone seemed to look up to me after a while. Maybe it was because I threw myself into the practices with a desperation they recognized. "You've got it, Ben," Marcus told me one evening after a session, clapping a hand on my shoulder. The room was dim, lit by candles that flickered shadows across the walls, their wax scent mingling with the herbal tea we sipped. "That fire in you, it's not destruction anymore, it's light." I could see it in myself, too. An aspiration, a need, a dream to never let someone fade into the dark while I had the power to pull them out and show them the light. But everything changed when I met her, Kayla. It was during one of our group meditations, the air thick with the murmur of guided breathing and the soft chime of Tibetan bowl. She slipped in late, dark hair, curly, buoyantly cascading across her shoulders like a waterfall in moonlight. Her face was thin, almost ethereal, with deep, sad eyes, the browns of her irises a magnificent swirl of chestnut and gold, catching the candlelight. She sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap, nails bitten short. There was something about her that called to my spirit, a quiet pull I couldn't ignore. Whether it was instinct or something more, it whispered that she was important. After the session, as we packed up, I approached her. The floor creaked under my sneakers, and the lingering smoke from my incense made my eyes water slightly. "First time?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked up, eyes locking onto mine with a vulnerability that hit like a gust of wind. "Yeah, I'm Kayla. I heard about this place from the church down the street. Religion wasn't cutting it for me." I nodded, leaning against a chair. "Same here. Name's Ben. What brings you?" She hesitated, tucking a curl behind her ear. Her voice was soft, laced with a faint tremor. "Just looking for control, I guess, over my mind, my body." We talked for hours that night. Long after the others left, the hall grew colder, the wind rattling the windows like impatient fingers. I opened up to her in a way I hadn't in years. Told her about Rose, the Morgellons that plagued her. She'd show me her arms, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. Red marks, fibers poking out like they were alive. Doctors said it was all in her head. Stress manifested physically. But the agony, it broke her. One night, she just walked out, vanished. Kayla's eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something. Recognition? Pain? She rolled up her sleeve then, revealing her own arm. Angry red welts, thin fibers glinting under the light like embedded wires. My stomach twisted, a cold dread uncoiling like those very fibers. It was just like Rose. The anxiety hit me hard. Would Kayla disappear too? Was this fate mocking me? Dangling hope only to snatch it away? "You're scared," I said, reaching out but stopping short of touching her. She nodded, tears welling. "I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. Doctors say it's psychosomatic, but it feels so real. The itching, the pulling, like something's invading me." We spent a great deal of time together after that. I'd invite her to my apartment, a cramped space with bookshelves sagging under self-help tomes and faint smell of chamomile tea always brewing. We'd meditate side by side on the warm rug, the city sounds filtering in, horns blaring, distant laughter. "Breathe in the light," I'd guide her, echoing Marcus's words. "Visualize the fibers retracting, retreating, your mind pushing them back." Slowly, Morgellons began to recede. Her skin cleared, the red marks fading to pink scars. But the anxiety gnawed at me. What if it's not enough? I'd confide in Marcus one afternoon, the sun slanting through the hall's dusty windows. "She reminds me so much of Rose. What if she just leaves?" Marcus steepled his fingers, his gaze thoughtful. "The mind's veil is thin, Ben. But you're stronger now. Trust the process." Kayla and I grew closer. Over carnation-scented evenings, we'd discuss inner nirvanas, heightened self-awareness. "You make me feel seen," she said once, her hand brushing mine, warm and tentative. The tea steamed between us, its floral notes soothing, like I can fight this. But one day, it all shattered. We were in my apartment, cross-legged on the floor, and sent curling, lazy smoke trails that stung my eyes. Chamomile tea cooling in mugs, its bitterness lingering on my tongue. As we delved deeper into meditation, discussing the heights of self-awareness, I felt it, a deep darkness inside, hiding like a shadow in the recesses. It wasn't from me. It emanated from Kayla, a cold void that made my skin prickle. I don't know if my actions were the cause, or if fate orchestrated it. I dove into that darkness, probing it with my mind as we'd been taught. What I found broke me more than I'd imagined. An evil, ancient and consuming, a hunger lurking in the depths, hidden even from her, but growing, infecting. The wires and fibers weren't surface deep anymore. They drove into bone, muscle, every fiber of our being. The only barrier was the thin veil of denial, but it was failing. I've always seen something in her eyes I couldn't place. I thought it was sadness, a longing, but now I recognize it. Fear. She knew she was losing herself, but admitting it would shatter everything. My acknowledgement pierced the veil, cascaded, the shield crumbling. An overwhelming wave crashed over us. Her eyes glazed over, vacant as glass. I felt her mind retreating, slipping away like sand through fingers. I broke the meditation with a gasp, my heart pounding. The room was empty. Kayla was gone. The door stood open. Soft breeze playing across my face, carrying that same dread as 15 years ago. I never saw her again. The anxiety I'd feared had become reality, fate's cruel echo. But in the darkness that followed, I fortified my mind once more, vowing to pull others from the brink. Yet sometimes, in the quiet nights, I wonder if I'm just pulling myself deeper in to a darkness I'll never escape. Well, that was, that was a story, that's for sure. Alright, well, moving on to the final story here. So, let's get into it. Here we go. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, helps the channel a lot. So, comment on what story you thought was your favorite. Which ones did you like? Which ones didn't you like? Give us some feedback for the direction of the channel. Anyways, let's get into it. I built a sanctuary. It was invaded, but not by our enemy. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. The meditation center smelled of damp cedar and melted soy candle wax. I sat on a threadbare mat, spine straight, palms up, legs extended, chasing stillness. The manuals swore would save us. Instead, I found the itch behind my knee, the ache in my lower back, and the generator's cough rattling through the vents. Early days of the rebellion. Before our guns, before our defenses. Before we knew our true enemy. Just 30 idealists squatting in an abandoned community hall, pretending breath could beat the network. Ben knelt opposite me, eyes shut, jaw tight. Beard had gone patchy from stress and canned beans. Single battery lantern pointed gold across the scuffled floorboards. In the kitchen, Jackie, Stephen, or drew the short straw, argued over trading our last crate of antibiotics for bullets that might not fit the 2 hunting rifles we'd scavenged. Scream ripped the quiet. My eyes snapped open. Another scream. Wet. Animal. From the east corridor. I was up, bare feet silent. Ben scrambled after me, breath ragged. We had no weapons. The fire axe in the lobby was still behind the glass. Observe, report, retreat. What we'd rehearsed, in theory, never in blood. We rounded the corner into the dorm wing. The old woman stood center hall like a nightmare stitched from hospital laundry. Gray hair hung in wet ropes, a gown sagged off bone, feet black with filth, foam flecked to her lips. She pinned Herman to the wall with one hand. Herman, ex-engineer, 180 pounds of stubborn muscle, his boots kicking air, his eyes bulged purple. "Drone!" Steven shouted from the stairwell. "Kill it!" But drones didn't bleed. Her shins were shredded. Blood dripped in fat drops that hissed on the cold floor. Drones didn't reek of urine, mildew, and fever sweat. I snatched a broom from the cleaning closet. Ben grabbed a dented bedpan. We advanced. "Let him go!" I said, voice cracking on her. Her head swiveled, click, like a broken marionette. Milky eyes locked on me, pupils blown. She hissed, a sound that crawled under my skin, and hurled Herman. He flew 3 meters, hit the wall, slid down in a red smear. Jackie burst in, face chalk. "Perimeter's clean! Front door was unlocked! How?" The woman charged. She moved wrong, joints loose, spine snaking. Ben swung the bedpan, thudded into her shoulder. Warm, solid, human, she snarled, raked claws across his forearm. 3 gashes bloomed red. I jammed the broom handle in her gut. She folded, retched pink foam, then bit the wood, splinters exploding. "Restrain her!" Steven arrived with zip ties. We piled on 4 bodies, 30 seconds of thrashing. She drew blood from Steven's ear, another 10 seconds to gag her with a towel. She never stopped growling. We dragged her to the meditation room and dumped her in the corner. Lantern light turned to foam marshmallow, sickly foaming at the mouth. Ben's arm swelled, cuts already angry. Herman coughed, voice shredded. "Pulse 180, temp 104. She's cooking." Jackie knelt, cautious. "Network doesn't send grandmas with lockjaw." The woman's eyes tracked us, pupils jittering, muffled, her voice screeching through the gag. Ben's shoulders sagged. Steven paced. No comms, no fence, but chicken wire. One sick old lady walks through the front door. If it was a drone, we'd be goners. Herman rasped. "Guns. That's what we need. Antibiotics might help the sick. Can't help the sick if we're dead, though." I stared at her bracelet. Cracked plastic. St. Paul's Geriatric Ward, 7C. Name: Agnes Choi. Expiration: 3 days ago. Ben whispered, "She's dying." His cuts throbbed. He flexed his fingers, testing. I thought, drones don't foam, don't bleed, don't quote manifestos. This wasn't a scout. This was a warning shot fired by a corpse. Jackie stood. "Root, cellar, triple straps. Shifts. Tomorrow we hit the RCMP detachment. Guns, ammo, dogs if we can steal them. No more yogurt retreat bullshit." Steven nodded, grim. "Motion sensors, tripwires, real walls." Herman touched his throat. "If the network can get one grandmother past us, we're already dead. We just haven't stopped breathing." Agnes twitched. Final wet rattle, her eyes rolled white. The room stank of death and cheap wax. Ben tore his shirt, wrapped his arm. Blood soaked through instantly. He looked at me. At all of us, circling like spooked deer. I felt the rebellion's fragility settle on my chest like wet wool. Outside, wind rattled the loose pane. Somewhere in the dark, the true enemy loomed. Wow, you made it all the way to the end. Congratulations. Again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. What did you like? What didn't you? Whatever feedback you can give. Do you like the voice? Do you not like the voice? Anyways, thank you again for watching and sticking around. You are amazing, and we will, of course, see you in the next one. Thank you for listening. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The blue might catch up to you if you do not. Be sure to check out more blue horror stories.